Today, we're going to look at another conversation framework which is particularly useful when you're at networking sessions, in social settings, or when you're meeting someone for the very first time. Now, this is something straight out of Ziglar. That's Ziglar. Well, for those of you who are curious, like I was, even back when I was a kid, because I heard that name a lot, Ziglar. That's not actually the real family name. So the longer name is something. Is it German? I can't remember. But anyway, it's an anglicized version of what the family name is. So, if there's any gentle listener out there who has also done the research in the past and who knows what the actual name is, please let me know. Shoot me a message so I can share with everyone. Okay. Now, so this framework out of Zig Ziglar, and by the way, he's very useful because he has lots of conversation frameworks and prompts that you can use, not just in social situations, but in sales situations as well. So this is one of his many frameworks, and this one is called POGO. And POGO is an acronym for person, organization, goal, and obstacles. So again, for those of you who are trying to write this down, POGO is person, organization, goals, and obstacles. Now, like the other frameworks that we have looked at on the podcast in the past, this is also a question-driven framework. So what that means is when you first run into someone at a networking session, so you guys have the Abuja Wedding Planners Association or the Lagos State Wedding Photographers Association, you guys are at that very first meeting and you run into another photographer, another planner, you want to strike up a conversation. This is the sort of framework to use. So first of all, it's question driven. You should be asking questions about the person, who are you? How'd you get into this business? What brings you here today? The organization, do you work for yourself? Or you shoot for this studio, or do you shoot for that studio? You ask questions about the goals. What is it that you're trying to achieve in your photography career? Where do you see yourself in 10 years, 5 years, blah, blah, blah? What are you trying to achieve with this business? What are your goals for attending this networking session today? What did you hope to get out of this networking meeting? And then obstacles. What challenges are you facing in building your wedding photography business, your wedding planning business? I'm sure if you sit down and you give it some more thought, you'll be able to come up with a lot more questions in your own style that are more relevant to what it is that you do. But basically, that's the whole idea. Ask questions about the person. Get to know them. Ask questions about the organization that they work for. Ask questions so that you know what it is that they're aiming at. The perfect vision for the future and all of that. That's the goals. And then obstacles, things that are hampering them that get in their way. Because you might be able to build some commonality around the common challenges that you guys face. And it's pretty much a very useful framework. Now, some of you who are new to all this might wonder, what's the whole point behind all this, especially with the POGO framework? Now, to find out why this is important, you're going to have to go back to a very, 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 very old book that I know some of us would not be caught dead reading, because there are lots of business people who stay away from things in the personal development space. But there is some principle of truth behind this idea contained in a very old book by Dale Carnegie. Or is it Dale Carnegie? I've heard both pronunciations. And in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he has this idea that, in summary, that if you want to be influential, you can't achieve that by going around talking about yourself all the time. You have to be interested in other people, because when you're interested in other people, that is you sort of putting them on a pedestal. It makes them feel elated, makes them feel valued, and noticed, and then that in turn is what increases your status. So you achieve greater status by making everybody feel good. So if you're that feel good guy, that feel good girl, you end up being very influential. And so that is the spirit behind the POGO framework and frameworks that are similar. So by asking questions that make you interested in other people, you will become more interesting in turn. It's something that I've said on the podcast, that there are a couple of people who think I'm a good conversationalist, and that's not because I have any particular skills per se, but just because I focus more on trying to get to the meat of, who is this person, what are they all about, things of that nature. I basically build my conversations around questions with the other person. Not that I don't think there's anything interesting about me. I think there are loads of stuff that are interesting about me. But I've just found it much more useful, especially now that I'm getting much more involved in this area of sales training. I just find it a whole lot more useful. When I'm meeting people for the first time, I need to quickly get down to the root of who they are, what they're about, where they're heading, what their goals are, and that pretty much informs whether this is going to be a useful relationship to have, whether there's any way I can be of value to them, or whether they can be of any value to me. And so that's all I do pretty much. I show up and I try and figure out who am I talking to, what are they about, and where are they heading. And so that's the spirit behind POGO. So ask questions about the person, the organization, the goals, the obstacles. Philosophy behind it is that by being interested in other people, you are going to be more interesting and much more influential, which of course is what we are trying to do as wedding industry professionals. We're trying to be much more influential because we assume, and rightly so, that the more influence that we have, the more money we're going to make at the end of the day. Now, for those of you who want a greater exposition on the POGO framework, there's been lots of things put out on the internet. So if you just hop on the Google machine and do a rudimentary search, if you just type in POGO and Ziglar, that's Ziglar, or POGO Ziglar. The first Zig is separate, Zig separate, and then Ziglar. So just do that rudimentary search on the Google machine, and you're going to see lots of stuff, PDFs, books, SlideShares. That's for those of you who remember the website SlideShare. Well, of course, that'll be those of us who are slightly more older. I doubt that you 25-year-olds listening to the podcast have an idea of what SlideShare is. But anyway, so you're going to see lots of stuff over there on the internet, and you see different ways about how people interpret this POGO framework and how they have applied it to their own situations and their own industries. So like I said, it's a good framework for social situations, networking sessions, and it's something that you can run with your wedding clients as well. It might not be particularly useful in the beginning while you are trying to close the deal. So you're a wedding photographer, you're trying to get them to book you as a wedding photographer. So POGO might not be particularly useful in the beginning. And so if you're a wedding planner, POGO might not be particularly useful at the early conversations that you're having, except if you adapt it to find out about them, the family, what the family is about, their goals for the wedding, and what obstacles that they're trying to work around in planning this wedding. So yes, you can adapt that as part of your sales process. But I find that for me anyway, I like to keep things straight to the point, more useful questions about the task at hand, and it's only when we've made some headway about the main thing, about the cocoa, that I now start asking all these personal questions and start trying to build rapport. It's just something I find that works for my own style, although I notice that a lot of people do it the other way around. You meet someone, you try to build some rapport, you try to be nice and you try to be personable before you get down to business. That's how I used to do it in the beginning, but I figured that doesn't quite suit my personality and my communication style. because I seem pretty much to be very upfront and direct kind of guy. So if I show up and I'm trying to build rapport, trying to be personable and stuff like that, it's like, why is this guy waffling? Get straight to the point. You know you're here because you're trying to sell me something. So I pretty much just get straight into the business conversations. And then when we're done with that, I can now start all those conversations, building rapport that, oh, you're from Benue State too? Yeah, I'm from Benue State. Okay, oh, your father went to OAU. Yeah, I finished from OAU 20 years ago, blah, 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 and all that good stuff. Anyway, too much of a digression. We're getting close to the 10-minute mark, so I'm going to wrap it up here. So thank you very much for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer Tavishima Ayede. Thank you very much for your time and attention. You guys will be happy to know that we only have 2 more outlines left to go. And I will promise, I'm not going to promise, I'm going to try and see if we can squeeze 2 of them into one episode so that we can move on to other things. So once again, thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys on the next recording.